You know, Pat, I've always found something kind of suspicious about aquariums.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there's just something fishy about them. I love seeing the silent reaction from Pat before we actually end up back on air, where he just is shaking his head to whatever I
That
said.
one was just bad.
What do you mean it's bad? It's a play on words. You don't appreciate.
It's a play, yeah, but it's so obvious. You gotta have a little bit of creativity behind it.
Listen, Pat, we're going on like episode fucking 75, maybe more, of doing these fucking jokes beforehand. So look, we're gonna run out eventually. If anyone wants to send dad jokes, send them to my PO box that I don't have. Folks, welcome back to Brand Coverage. I'm Brandon Carney, alongside Pat Gustafson. We'll be talking about whatever developments have happened in the NFL over the last few weeks. Honestly, it's getting to that pretty dry part of the season, but we do have some stuff to talk about. But the main segment of our show today will be in a few minutes and a little bit later, where we will be doing our favorite fantasy football rookies draft. So last week, we basically went through positionally and just said what our favorite fits were, guys who we think are going to be the most relevant in redraft leagues this upcoming season. But now we are going to put those rankings and just our thoughts to the test. Pat and I are going to go back and forth and actually draft our own little starting lineup strictly of rookies. We do have just enough players to be able to do that, I think.
And I was thinking we could really honestly just keep track of this. We could keep score of this here too.
Absolutely.
Even have a little fun with that. Unless guys like snap their femurs, knock on wood.
Right, which is possible. And also, I mean, we're doing this so early, obviously, in the offseason. We're in May, and, situations are going to change. There's also going to be probably some free agents that still get signed that may muddy some of these situations. We're going to talk about that, too, the best landing spots for the remaining free agents, because there are still a couple of big-name guys out there. We've seen a couple come off the board in and around draft time. Guys like Tyler Lockett have jumped onto teams. But we do still have some big names that we expect to be on teams, so we'll talk about those guys as well. But, yeah, I mean, a lot can and will happen between now and, when people are actually drafting fantasy teams. But it would be fun to keep track of where these guys end up anyway. But we can get into it pretty soon, Pat. I mean, first, I'll just say this. I'm back from a bachelor party. I don't drink, so I'm not hurting as much as a lot of my buddies are. But I do feel like I just returned from a fucking black hole for 4 days of just...
Me every day.
Of just excessive sugar consumption and golf and being a piece of shit next to a pool. So that's pretty much. Are
you abandoning Coke Zero Sugar? What kind of sugar is
no,
entering your body?
No, absolutely not. No, in fact, we bought a case of Coke Zero the second day we were there. The sugar that was entering my body was copious amounts of Krispy Kreme donuts and just Uncrustables. The trip was basically sponsored by Uncrustables, and I then got home yesterday and promptly bought 2 boxes of them because I got a taste for them like a cannibal gets a taste for human meat. So I could not be satisfied. I actually just ate one about a few seconds before we hopped on air here. So Uncrustables, Smuckers, if you see this, sponsor our dumbasses.
Smucker, I barely know her.
It's the off-season, folks. Who am I kidding? We say this shit during the season. But yeah, back from a bachelor party. It was a great time. Congrats, Gary. You're going to be getting married soon, and I got to go to your dumbass wedding in a fucking month. Nah, it's going to be a great time, too. One of my buddies actually said he plans to fully ruin the wedding with how much he's going to drink. So that's the kind of group we are dealing with here. But yeah.
Who is it, Gary himself?
It was Dave, but yeah, probably Gary himself. But yeah, hey, look, had a great time. It's nice in this little slow time in the off-season. You get to enjoy some time with the boys, don't have as much pressing content responsibilities. Like, yeah, there's plenty of stuff I could be doing for the draft, and I'm going to be doing all throughout the next several months of draft fallout and just NFL season previewage and all that good shit. But, it is nice to not be completely up against the wall right now. So, I went outside for a little bit. I know that's the upset of the century.
Grass.
I touched a little grass. I touched a little sand. I shanked a few golf balls into the fucking woods and the water and probably an alligator's mouth. But, hey, great time overall.
As God intended.
As God intended. Pat, let's get into the news for the day.
Good evening. I'm Ron Burgundy, and this is what's happening in your world tonight.
On a light note, and this is pretty cool, the NFL has tabbed Washington, D.C. for the 2027 NFL Draft. It will take place at the National Mall with the Capitol building in the background. That's going to look fucking sick. I mean, what the fuck? Washington's doing all the right things.
We need people in the pool, or whatever the hell they call that.
Absolutely.
We need.
I don't know
floats
what the fucking pond. I don't know. You make wishes in there. I know what you're talking about, but
genuinely, that's just gonna be sick. Like that's
it's
gonna be so
dope.
cool. That's gonna be so cool to have the fucking Capitol building as the backdrop. Jesus Christ, as the backdrop to the draft. That sounds so fucking cool.
I might have to make my way out there, except for the fact that I think the Washington D.C. airport is the one that keeps having all these fucking issues of smashing planes into shit. So maybe not. Maybe I'll just walk. Actually, I think I'll be within driving distance by that point. So maybe we can do that. No, look, it feels like this. If it feels like the city of Washington D.C. is doing everything right as far as football is concerned. You know, anything else we can leave to the side. But the Commanders are building a new stadium in that area again, and it just feels like, you know, everything ever since the Commanders turned over ownership, it just feels like cool things keep happening for them and around them, and this is certainly on that list. I can't wait to see that draft.
They know they just have an immense amount of damage to repair from the Dan Snyder reign. So
100%. On less light news, Pat, and this is the header photo for this show. It's part of the title, and it is probably the biggest news of the week. Justin Tucker cut. Not a surprise after the Ravens drafted a kicker, which not a lot of teams do. You really only do that if you have a blatant opening at the kicker position. And the Ravens now, about a week after the draft, said, adios, Justin Tucker. Get fucked.
I'd like to play a quick song for Justin Tucker here, if that's okay.
By all means.
I'm serious. This is the world's smallest violin.
Where did you get that?
Amazon.
Oh my god, I didn't know.
Well, I've had this. I keep forgetting to bring this.
You mentioned it a couple shows ago. I didn't know you meant it was the literal SpongeBob.
It's a keychain.
Yeah, I see that. I didn't know that's what you meant. That's fucking fantastic. I approve.
But yes, Justin Tucker get absolutely fucked.
Yeah. So I mean, look. It's pretty inevitable that you're going to get released when you are a liability both off and on the field, which is exactly what he was last year. I think the Ravens are thanking their lucky stars that Justin Tucker was bad last year because they didn't have to make a decision based strictly on, you know, morality and trying to possibly sweep under the rug or, you know, get rid of these allegations because, you know, they have one of the greatest kickers of all time. Of course, last year was the first time he showed any cracks in his game. They were some pretty major cracks. We were talking about how they might have to look for a different kicker heading into the postseason with how bad he was to close out, you know, the second half, or really most of the season, but it got really bad at the second half of the season. They didn't do that. They finished out the season, and now it looks like it is certain for 2025, they will have a new kicker for the first time in quite a while.
Yeah, their statement was kind of tone deaf,
100%.
Just in the sense that, like, you need to at least acknowledge what's going on off the field. You can't, like, the fact that they just pretended that there is nothing going on, just the fact that, like, oh, due to football reasons, this guy's a legend, yada, 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 yada. Like, come on. You can acknowledge the fact that he has been arguably the best kicker of all time for your franchise this last however many years. But the fact to not even mention it, granted they are allegations at the moment, they are just allegations, but to not mention that because it absolutely had something to do with their decision, whether they say so or not.
Yeah, I mean it was certainly a heavy-handed approach to it, a little clumsy because you got to acknowledge it, and you can do it in a way where you're not indicting the guy and where you are also acknowledging that, you know, it was primarily a football decision because before we really knew the scope of any of this, like we were talking about how he should probably or how the Ravens should maybe be looking at other options because, like, you can't have a kicker be a complete liability on the field, and that's what he was becoming. So yeah, there was just a much smoother way to go about this for sure.
Someone in the chat said it's not the only crack he's showing, and god damn it, that one got me.
I mean, is there some kind of Justin Tucker? Oh yeah.
I'm sure the ass crack comes out.
I was going to say, is there a specific ass pick of Justin Tucker we're talking? I mean, Derrick Henry had the ass pick, so the Ravens clearly just like showing ass. But that makes sense.
Hell yeah,
now that I think about it for more than 5 seconds, yeah, I guess he was probably
Kyle
showing
Lowry,
some ass
future
in there
Baltimore
as well.
Raven. Yeah.
I mean, he could probably play left guard. Meanwhile, the Ravens will turn to Tyler Loop now, 6th-round pick out of Arizona. He kicked a program record 62-yard field goal last season. Honestly, overall, kind of mid last season. He was fine, but he was 18 for 23 overall. 3 of those misses from 50 plus, where he was 6 for 9. He did miss. And again, I'm completely box score watching here, so for all I know, it could have gotten blocked. But he missed 1 kick from, I believe, the 20-yard range, and then 1 other kick in the 40-yard range. But overall, I mean, 18 for 23. Missing 3 of them from 50. Like, hey, I can't really make any sweeping judgments on what he will be like as an NFL kicker from that. Maybe he'll be really good. Maybe he'll be off the team in 2 years. But otherwise, all we know is he's not Justin Tucker.
And again, so much about kicking is opportunity, and this is going to be a really good offense, whether for extra points or being in field goal range. Mm-hmm. So as long as the kid can just do his job, he's going to have a lot of opportunity and will probably be drafted. I mean, kickers are in the lineup. You do get points from them. They do matter, as lame as they are. They can win or lose you a week. He's going to be drafted as a top 12 kicker.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of him as a fantasy, in terms of fantasy football. But yeah, he will absolutely be a consideration on one of the best offenses in the sport. A piece of news close to my heart, Pat. Julian Edelman has been inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame. We'll have to wait and see if he gets into the NFL Hall of Fame. Probably not. But I know. Biasly, I would love to see it. But in the Patriots Hall of Fame, he won a fan vote, defeating Adam Vinatieri and Logan Mankins. I read up. Excuse me. I read up on it, and Patriots, front office and coaches and otherwise staffers, they basically create the finalists, and then the fans vote on who ultimately gets in. Not a shock in the slightest that Julian Edelman gets in over these guys, as iconic as both Vinatieri and Logan Mankins are. Julian Edelman as a wide receiver is absolutely going to beat out a kicker and an offensive lineman, if for no other reason than, people are watching him a lot more closely, and he's able to make some more of those iconic moments, even though Vinatieri has plenty of his own. But shout out to Julian Edelman, one of my favorite players of all time.
And the fact that Edelman is still very, very present in, NFL media with his podcast, all these appearances he's making. Like, he's just a funny dude. The fact that they only induct one person a year is crazy.
I know.
And the fact that Adam Vinatieri and Logan Mankins, who both have like 100 Super Bowls with them, are not in, is crazier.
Yeah, it is weird. Those are guys that, you would assume are already in or should absolutely be in. And considering the Patriots dynasty and how long it lasted and how many great players were on the team all at once, it feels a little odd to only go one at a time. But granted, now we're going to have a stretch here where it's not like we're going to be making any new Hall of Famers for at least over the previous 5 years. We don't really have anybody that I think is going to be getting in. So who knows? I mean, I guess Matthew Slater might get in. Who knows? And he just retired. And Devin McCourty is a fairly recent retirement as well, a couple years ago. So his number got assigned to Travion Henderson, by the way. So we'll be having a new number 32 out there on the field for New England.
I didn't realize that Logan Mankins has been a finalist 3 times for the Hall of Fame and has not gotten it yet. You'd think eventually. It's so hard because there's just so many deserving players at so many different positions in football as opposed to basketball and baseball.
Right.
So you'd think a guy like him should get in, but with everyone kind of coming and going from the ballot, it'll be especially your boy Eli Manning. It'll be interesting. I
still feel so vindicated that he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, if he gets in eventually, that's fine. But fuck yeah, I feel great about that. Okay. In other news, and also, by the way, Pat, the way we're motoring through this show sheet, this will probably be a shorter show, which honestly I'm okay with doing over the next few weeks if things don't pop up, because we're going to create some of these segments. We're going to do whatever. But
I get paid by the hour.
You certainly do not. But at the end of the day, if we don't have things to fill the show, we don't have things to fill the show. But I think we're going to have fun segments for the ones that we do have. But now that I'm done ranting about the functionality of the show, in other news, we do have a few little pieces of rumorage and newsage that have popped up as it relates to fantasy football. And this one, I probably got tagged in and mentioned in about 100 times because it's coach speak season, baby. And Falcons offensive coordinator Zach Robinson says he's expecting Kyle Pitts to make a big jump. And so this has restarted the train. Somebody tweeted at me and said, I'm hearing the voices again. And I entertained that thought with a gif of Randy Orton hearing the voices in his head and shaking like he's losing his mind. Folks, again, I love to play along with the bit about me and Kyle Pitts. And to be fair, it's not entirely a bit because I am still extremely angry with him for what he did to me that one fateful fantasy season. But again, this is something I feel like I have to point out every year. Kyle Pitts only bit me one time. I learned from my mistakes. I did not buy into him again ever after that 1 year where I drafted him in the 3rd round. And folks, I will not be drafting him again because this quote is peak coach speak and peak out of context coach speak, because Robinson also went on to say, after, he expects him to make a big jump, that Kyle Pitts knows what he needs to work on with the details, some of the fundamentals and techniques, the consistency down in and down out. Those are things we talk about with him, and Coach Koger talks about with him all the time, is those finer details. So after saying he expects him to make a big jump, he also went on to talk about all the things that Kyle Pitts has basically fucked up over the past few years and hasn't been good enough at doing, and says he needs to continue to get better at doing those things. So it sounds like a pretty blind hope and expectation, and not something to buy into even in the slightest as it pertains to fantasy football.
In the ESPN consensus rankings for tight ends for fantasy right now, he is 21st behind the likes of Hunter Henry, Pat Freiermuth, Mike Gesicki, and our boy Chig Okonkwo. And honestly,
right, yeah.
A couple guys behind him, Cade Otton and Brenton Strange, I think I might rather have. Like, Kyle Pitts is just... In the preseason, Kyle Pitts is kind of going to be a case where someone will probably take a flyer on him in his draft, and if he does something, it's going to be during the season. This isn't going to be a case of his stock rising throughout the offseason.
I'll say this, like, despite me not believing any of this stuff, with his ranking being there, I could understand a dart throw at Kyle Pitts again, if for no other reason than, you're not really picking at a lot of elite upside and elite talent that late in the draft. And, like, there is at least a slight element of, what if Michael Penix ends up being, a huge up? Because, like, the Falcons didn't have good quarterback play last year. I feel like people might be a little clouded by the couple of games Kirk Cousins had, both of them against the Buccaneers, I'm pretty sure, where he was actually a functional quarterback. But, like, Michael Penix has a chance, and I know we've said this every year, but it's been true every year. Michael Penix has a chance to be the best passer Kyle Pitts has played with, other than, Matt Ryan his rookie year. And that possibility alone, I could justify maybe a bench stash for Kyle Pitts. I don't think I will be taking that stab just because of personal wounds, and I think I will find other players I would rather invest in at that point. But there may be certain roster constructions where that feels like the best player to invest in at that point. And like we talked last year, Pat, when it was speculative, could Kyle Pitts bounce back and become a better player time because he's got Kirk Cousins? We talked about the fact that the opportunity cost just wasn't built in enough, because he was like tight end, like 9 or something preseason last year? It was something.
He was getting going as a tight end 1.
Yeah, it was really egregious considering just the lack of anything he's shown. And now, tight end 21, if he sticks there, it's much lower risk. Like, if he's fucking ass again and you see that in the first week or two of the season, you kick his ass to the curb. But I'll say that, like, it is at least more digestible now if you find yourself wanting to take a chance on Kyle Pitts. But don't do it because of this quote, because this quote is the most meaningless shit I've ever seen in my life.
And it is possible, because I think people still have some Arthur Smith derangement syndrome, just the fact that, like, that's so attributed to that offense. He's gone. He's long gone. Zach Robinson is here. That was year 1 of him as an offensive coordinator. Year 1 with Raheem Morris as the head coach. Now they've got a new quarterback. It could very well see this offense progress. Drake London was great last year. Bijan Robinson was, of course, great last year. Like, there is a possibility of this happening. I'd rather be the guy that doesn't take the swing and is wrong on this than take the swing and be wrong.
Yeah, now it is worth noting as well that the Falcons brought in a tight end this offseason, Charlie Warner, who is a blocking tight end. And he is going to change a little bit. Hold on, I'm just looking up the depth chart really quick, too.
Hell yeah, Charlie Warner.
Charlie Warner. Excuse me, wait. Charlie Warner, I believe, was signed last year, so I could be bugging out, actually. I think he was here last year, and I've got the stats messed up. What did he do last year? Okay, last year, Charlie Warner, 7 catches, hell yeah, on 12 targets for 46 yards. Yeah, so blocking tight end. Were there any tight ends? Okay, yeah, so no, never mind. There's no excuses to be made for Kyle Pitts. I was wrong. I was looking to see, in my head, there was like a receiving tight end that left, but that I'm thinking literally an entire season behind where that was Jonnu Smith that left.
And Michael Pruitt.
And Michael Pruitt, yeah. So Kyle Pitts doing nothing last year with Charlie Warner already in the picture. Yeah, no, never mind. He's irredeemable. He's an irredeemable piece of shit, and I fucking hate him. And this quote means nothing. So fuck Kyle Pitts. All right, maybe that's a little too far. Sorry. Okay. The other little piece of fantasy news here, Rashee Rice is looking good, and this is an important player to monitor because we saw how good he was the first month or so of the season before the torn ACL induced by Patrick Mahomes tackling his own guy by accident.
Hey, man.
But there are videos surfacing of Rashee Rice working out. He looks good. He looks full speed. And I know we don't want to do the training camp video thing, but as it pertains to player health, I think it's a little bit more usable versus, Calvin Ridley ran that route really fast. He's going to be really good this year. But yeah, Rashee Rice is looking healthy.
2 years ago when Jonathan Taylor looked like he was walking in a straitjacket and then ended up being put on on PUP after that. So with things with health, you can sort of tell. But yeah, Rashee Rice, assuming everything is on track and he's healthy to be back week 1, I think we're kind of in the same position as last year where it's like he should be, a high-end wide receiver too. He is that guy. We said the Chiefs made it to another Super Bowl without that guy. They had him. And he just wasn't available there. So he is that guy, not Travis Kelce. So the value is still there, and he's still going to produce.
Right. I think, if anything, Travis Kelce's dust at this point, because if Rashee Rice is going to be healthy, we already saw how much he sent Kelce to the shadow realm last year before Kelce was kind of forced to assume that role after Rashee got hurt.
And stay in the shadow realm.
Right. But zero concerns, it seems, for Rashee Rice's health. Again, one of the Twitter fantasy doctor fellas that I follow, that I trust, he said zero concerns about Rashee Rice's health for week 1 this season. Movement looks phenomenal. My guess is he could probably play in a game today if he needed to. That's from JM Thrive PT on X. And the legal issues, Pat, which is the main thing people are also worried about, they seem pretty unlikely, again, to affect him until probably next year. He has a civil court date set for June, but that's not the criminal court date, and there's a chance that could even get moved. So doesn't look like he's going to face a suspension this season, which, again, this was kind of the same stuff we were monitoring last year, and it looks like it might get pushed off another year. So, look, if you're not playing ethical fantasy football and you don't care, which, let's be honest, a lot of us don't. If the guy is still putting up some numbers like Rashee Rice, Rashee Rice will. Yeah, fuck God, that fucking guy. And Rashee Rice is their wide receiver 1 when healthy. If people in your league are more concerned about the injury and the legal issues than they should be, take advantage of that. Draft the guy because he's probably going to be really good.
Yeah, we've seen the league in recent years not do anything until the legal. Remember Alvin Kamara a few years ago where everyone was really worried about him, and as the offseason went along, it was like, oh, they're not doing anything until the legal process plays out. And his value is incredible because people are scared about that. So if that's the case with Rashee Rice, once some of these ADPs start happening over the summer, take advantage.
Absolutely. All right, Pat, let's move on to the best landing spots for the remaining free agents. Because, again, we mentioned last week that after the draft, those dominoes had fallen, so there are now seemingly more logical landing spots, or we expected the free agent market to heat up just because teams now know what they were able to get in the draft, what they were not able to get in the draft, what holes they still need to fill. And we've still got some pretty solid veterans sitting out in the free agent market, at least guys who were relevant to an extent last year. So we've got 5 names here. I've identified what I think are the best landing spots for them, Pat. Feel free to chime in if you disagree. Starting with one that we don't have to spend a lot of time on because it's Aaron fucking Rodgers, and we know it's the Steelers or bust. There's really not anywhere there's not anywhere that's been even linked to him other than the Steelers in months. But there's also no logical landing spots for a starting quarterback until, and hopefully this doesn't happen, until some kind of preseason or training camp injury. Because the other team that was looking for a starting quarterback was the Cleveland Browns. You could argue that Rodgers would still be the best guy on that roster if he signed with them today, but they've got 5 guys there. They're not probably going to bring in another guy when they're already figuring out how to shuffle. I guess it's really 4 guys because Deshaun's dead. But trying to figure out what to do with Joe Flacco.
What did you just say? Deshaun is dead?
Deshaun Watson, dead. Yeah, that's a great
Sorry to interrupt. Had to keep that relevant.
Excuse me. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Aaron Rodgers, though. Yeah, I don't see him going to the Browns. They got too many guys. Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, 2 rookies they drafted. So I feel like that kind of disqualifies them from him, which makes sense because they weren't really linked to him much anyway. It was really just the Giants and the Steelers and the Vikings. But the other two spots, understandably, have cooled down. The Steelers still desperately need a quarterback. So hard to say that the Steelers are not still the best fit for both Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers themselves. We'll see if it happens, or we'll see if this man just fucking hangs them up and puts us all out of our misery.
He won't.
Running backs. J.K. Dobbins, Pat. Probably the best fantasy contributor out of the guys we're going to talk about from this list from last season. He ended up being in a very, very, very solid RB2 last season against all odds, with the several different leg injuries that he was coming off of. And then, kind of in hindsight, it was like, yeah, even with all those injuries, he was probably the best bet to succeed from that backfield, just because Gus Edwards just was never very good. He was always just a plotter. He was always just touchdown guy. But there was really no precedent for a running back being any sort of productive after the amount of injuries that J.K. Dobbins has had. Now, granted, he did end up spending a month on the IR still at the end of the year, but he contributed quite well for fantasy teams throughout last season. I would know. I had him for a stretch after I traded Jonathan Taylor for him. Don't ask, don't tell. Now we're looking for a place for J.K. Dobbins to go this season. And to me, there's no slam dunk spots. There's no spot where he's going to be as good as he was with LA last year. Yeah. But if I have to pick, it is the Chicago Bears, because the Chicago Bears, I said it last show, I've tweeted it, I've put this on billboards. Like, there's no way the Chicago Bears go into next season with DeAndre Swift, Roshan Johnson, and Kyle Monangai as their running backs. There's just no way. I don't believe that Ben Johnson, a guy that is, so creative and so good at offense, is going to go in with such a meager running back room like that. So I think J.K. Dobbins, even though he's not a guy that, should he be added to that running back room, I would expect to take over fully. I certainly wouldn't. He is a guy that I could see going in there and being part of, a productive committee approach with DeAndre Swift, a guy that keeps DeAndre Swift fresh. DeAndre Swift will keep him fresh. It would be a committee among committees, Pat, and it would be kind of a nightmare. But I think that an offense that is as good as I expect the Bears to be, and I know that requires some projection as well because it's the Bears and they haven't really done much in a long time, but I am on the bandwagon. I think that is the best logical spot for J.K. Dobbins to end up at this point.
Yeah, I agree, all things considered. If we're talking volume, if it's like where can J.K. Dobbins get the most volume, it's Cleveland. It seems like Cleveland is a spot. Even with Quinshon Judkins, who I love, picked him in my first dynasty pick. He's still a rookie, and that's a good opportunity for Dobbins. I think Dallas as well, a place where he could go and be in the mix with Javonte Williams and don't tell me, Keyshawn Vaughn, Deuce Vaughn, who the hell else
Miles,
is there?
they got Miles Sanders, and they drafted Jaden Blue.
Yes, they did draft J. I also took him in dynasty as well, but a place that just seems like Miami. Not that it's good, but I can just see him falling into more of that Raheem Mostert role in the Mike McDaniel offense. I don't know. I was just looking through all the team situations, and Miami I kind of just stopped in my tracks a little bit with Miami. Not that it would be good or anything, or he could go be a backup at a place like Baltimore or something like that.
That's true. Back to Baltimore. Yeah, no, I looked at Miami's depth chart as well, and I just felt like it was a bit of an awkward fit, not because, look, J.K. Dobbins signs there, he's immediately their second best running back. But when you look at their depth chart, obviously you've got Devon Achane as the number one. You've got Jalen Wright, who is a guy that it seems like they wouldn't give up on that quickly. They drafted another back with Ollie Gordon, even though it was, I think, a 6th-round pick. And they signed Alexander Madison. So, I mean, disgusting, yeah, but, you signed Alexander Madison, you could have just signed J.K. Dobbins if they were interested in him. So, it would be it's not a terrible fit, but just not one I necessarily expect to happen.
Chuck Bass on Twitter, one of my favorite follows, just an absolute troll with still some insight, said that we're not ready for the Alexander Madison 10 touchdown season, and I'm just like,
stop.
That's the thing is
not.
See, that's the thing is it's at the point though where you're just that's nonsense. Where you're just no, where you think it could actually.
There's no chance. There is Alexander Madison is the most sorry excuse for a starting running back I've ever seen in my life. If this dude isn't wearing purple and getting 20% of the touches, he is fucking useless. Do not give this man any semblance of volume. He will not do anything with it. So I'm glad he seems buried on the Dolphins depth chart, hopefully never to return. Look, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but God, he's a fucking mediocre running back, and mediocre's generous.
Bro got passed by a man named Sincere.
I mean, seriously, like Amir Abdullah as well. Like I almost
hey, he's a solid.
Yeah, he's very solid. That's why he's also still a free agent, and why I'm not even bothering to talk about him. But yeah, J.K. Dobbins, Bears, Browns. I think both those spots would make sense. Speaking of Nick Chubb, another guy who kind of fits in that mold. Now the Browns do not seem to be interested in bringing Nick Chubb back. They have. I believe all but said as much. They restructured Jerome Ford's contract to keep him around, and after drafting Quinshon Judkins in the first round, it seems like they are probably not. Or wait, was it first round or was it early second round? Early second round. Yes, thank you. Just with the moves they've made at running back, it doesn't seem like they are likely to bring Nick Chubb back. So that leaves us wondering where he goes. I think best remaining landing spot for him, again, you have to look at the Bears. If it's not J.K. Dobbins, I think it could be Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is actually the name that we've seen some smoke about him going there. Hasn't happened yet, so who knows if it's actually going to materialize, but there has been some rumors of him possibly being the 1A or the 1B to DeAndre Swift's whatever the fuck he is. So we'll see if that happens. But the other team I am throwing out here as a possibility, and this would be devastating to anybody who is invested in a certain rookie running back. Not for Dynasty, because Nick Chubb's kind of cooked, but this would be devastating for the redraft value of this guy that has shot up after the draft because of his landing spot, and that's the Denver Broncos, Pat. I think the Denver Broncos, with the trajectory they are on, and with how well they performed last year, how they became this playoff team that, looks like they could be a dark horse Super Bowl contender with the coach like Sean Payton, with the moves they've made to the defense this offseason, even though Dre Greenlaw, I believe, is now set to miss the year with an injury, which is just horrible for him. I feel terrible for the guy. Just some of the worst timed injuries you could ever see. But still, the Broncos have made a lot of improvements. I think even after drafting R.J. Harvey, there is room on this depth chart, just looking at it, for a guy like Nick Chubb, because I know especially the fantasy community is used to talking about these guys now, like Jaleel McLaughlin and Audric Estime, like they are fixtures in the backfield. Audric Estime was a 5th-round pick who wasn't good last year. Jaleel McLaughlin was an undrafted free agent who wasn't that good last year. So I could see them bringing in Nick Chubb as kind of the designated short yardage goal line back, if they don't believe Audric Estime, who is a fucking truck but just not that good at football, if they don't believe that he is up to that task. So it was just an idea with a team that I could see, or that I do see as being a possible contender next year, adding that kind of veteran, that kind of production in that backfield at a role that they don't necessarily have right now.
I am going to say something here. Should Nick Chubb go to the Broncos, I would not be concerned almost at all for R.J. Harvey. Like, I am not threatened by Nick Chubb unless he goes to a place where, like, the coaching staff is infatuated with him. We saw him average about 3 yards a carry last year and then have another catastrophic injury. It's terrible. The guy's like one of the best running backs of this era and a great guy, but if anything, I think I view him as more of as the complement to a starting running back rather than, like, could he go to Denver? Yes, absolutely. Like, I think he'd be a good complement, but that said, I would not be concerned, which was kind of my case last year with the Browns. Turns out Jerome Ford just fucking sucks. But, like,
built Ford tough.
If that were the case in Denver, I quite frankly would not be particularly concerned for R.J. Harvey.
No, and I'm with you. I've been singing the downsides of Nick Chubb here for a while, where I don't believe he himself is going to be fantasy relevant just because of the injuries and because of the age. I just think if there was anywhere that could siphon any ounce of fantasy value left in Nick Chubb, and that could at least be a minor, not even thorn, but maybe small thumbtack in the side of RJ Harvey owners, I could see it being Denver, because just of the short yardage usage that they could do for Nick Chubb, because Nick Chubb's not a guy that at this stage of his career, with the injuries, with the age, that he's going to be handling a lot of touches. So I agree, like RJ Harvey, if he is that dude, if he's the guy they drafted him to be in the second round, like that's much higher draft capital than anybody expected RJ Harvey to be given by any team. If he's the guy that the Broncos think he is, no, Nick Chubb in the grand scheme of things is not going to affect much for his fantasy value. But is there a world where Nick Chubb is their short yardage back and finishes the season with 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns? Yeah, I think there is. And that's enough to irritate RJ Harvey owners, especially with a quarterback that's already kind of mobile himself. So just an idea. Again, this is, we want to touch on the big names. We want to touch on the guys that people are wondering where they're going to go. For better or for worse, Nick Chubb is one of those guys, even though neither of us are really that big of believers in what he is going to offer the rest of his career. Unfortunately, I'm just glad he's had a good career up to this point, because after that major knee injury he had at Georgia, that was in question. He at least had a stretch where, I think most people who really watched the game believed he was the best pure runner in football for basically the entirety of his prime. So shout out to Nick Chubb for an incredible career if he is in the twilight, which it does seem like he is. Amari Cooper, another big name here. Looking up and down at what teams could use a receiver, Pat, I think a Dallas Cowboys reunion makes a lot of sense here. The Cowboys did not draft. I don't believe they even drafted a receiver. If they did, they didn't spend a high pick on one. But the Cowboys did not add a major receiver, and they are now looking at a starting receiver depth chart of Amari Cooper, Jalen Tolbert, and I believe Kevontae Turpin, who electric playmaker, but he's a special teamer, and he's a gadget guy for the offense. I don't believe they view him as a full-time starting outside receiver. I think the Cowboys probably have to add somebody to this receiver room just to feel good about where they're at heading into next year. I mean, they had Brandon Cooks kind of fill a big piece of that last year, and he is now gone to New Orleans. So I think Amari Cooper would make a lot of sense.
You're forgetting a huge piece here in Jonathan Mingo.
You're right. It is Jonathan Mingo season. You're right.
Yeah, I think that Cooper would be solid depth, because unfortunately that's what it seems he is at this point in his career is depth, which is crazy, because even I believe I was talking highly of him going into last season, and he was very good 2 seasons ago. But for whatever reason now, maybe he just wasn't prioritized enough in the Bills' offense to show what he can do, but he was just a non-factor there fantasy-wise, really, at the end of the year. Again, I guess we could throw in Keenan Allen in a little bit of a similar situation here, just in the sense that he's just kind of a little more of a possession guy, outside, throw it in the end zone. I think the Raiders genuinely would be a good spot for either of these guys, just looking at the fact that, you got Brock Bowers as a tight end. You got Jacoby Myers, who lives in the slot. Jack Besh, who's not really going to be a huge force outside. They could use something else on the outside here that's not Trey Tucker, who, again, is more of a gadget guy. I think either a reunion with Cooper or preferably a guy like Keenan Allen would fit really well in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think those spots all make sense. Just looking at what place could salvage or, again, scrape out the most value out of the player itself, I think that's probably Dallas for Amari, just because he's already got that experience with Dak Prescott and going back to a team in a city he's familiar with. I don't know if he has any interest in doing that, but I think that would make a lot of sense for him. And just, it's one of the only places that I could see, a decent workload for him. So who knows? We'll see where Amari Cooper ends up. But as it pertains to Keenan Allen, Pat, again, kind of similar outlook for me on what teams could need him as the running backs we talked about. Keenan Allen, I look at the Broncos as one, because, again, a team that is motoring toward contention and currently has starting receivers who, outside of Cortland Sutton, there are some question marks. I like Marvin Mims. Marvin Mims came on a lot at the end of last year. Yeah. But their third projected starter right now is Devon Vele, who was I think 6th round pick last season and didn't do a lot. I think he's a competent receiver in this league, but I don't think he's a guy they want to, or that they should be leaning on a ton if they are going to be serious about contending. At least not when a sure-hander and experienced receiver like Keenan Allen is out there. I just think it's not a necessary ad for them, but I think it would be a savvy ad for a team like the Broncos and where they're at.
Yeah, and there's also still talk about Troy Franklin here being Bo Nix's favorite college target as well, still being in the mix. But again, you're looking at fringe starters here, and if you get a guy like Keenan Allen, granted, he is not Keenan Allen. He's not the Keenan Allen we even saw 2 years ago in Los Angeles, who was lit the fuck up for some reason. But yeah, adding him would certainly bring more experience and bring more consistency. We know what you're going to get from Keenan Allen at this point in his career, as opposed to guys like Vele and Franklin and Mims, who very well could be productive receivers, but they could also very well be, oh God, I forget who I'm thinking about right now. Corey Coleman. I'm thinking about
Christ.
Corey Coleman. Just somebody that's just, it ain't it. It ain't it. They're bouncing around, it ain't it.
I think Corey Coleman is a receiver's coach somewhere. Hold on, where is he? I want to find this now because
There's another guy on the Jets that I was thinking of who was ass, and I can't remember his name. Oh, Denzel Mims. Denzel Mims is the other guy I was thinking of. Another guy that's just like, hey, this guy could be something fun, and then he's just not. He's just not.
Corey Coleman is on the TCU football staff. He is a coach now after playing with the Michigan Panthers in the UFL in 2024.
He was playing in the UFL as of 2024?
Yeah, he's only 30.
That's still crazy. The guy was ass.
Well, I mean, he's ass, but hey, there's other leagues out there. He could have played in the fucking Japanese football league. But, anywhere you could play. Some of these guys are football heads, clearly because he is now taking a coaching job at TCU, a school that he did not attend. So shout out to Corey Coleman, man, making a life in football. All right. Actually, let me just touch on one more team. The Browns for Keenan Allen, I think, would make sense because their receiver room is the most disgusting fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. It's Jerry Jeudy, and then it is Jamari Thrash and Cedric Tillman. Tillman's all right. He had a decent stretch last year until he got concussed and was useless after that. I would know. I traded for him in fantasy, and he made me big sad.
I had a lot of them too. Yeah.
I think with the likelihood that the Browns are staring at a rookie quarterback starting for them at some point next season, whether it's week 1 or not. Again, having another vet like Keenan Allen in there just to help them, I think, would be beneficial, and to not have Jamari Thrash be seeing significant snaps. All right, let's move into the rookie draft, folks. This is going to be me and Pat going head-to-head, competing with each other to create the best starting lineup. Pat's typing in Ashton Genty already for his number one.
Whoa, spoilers!
Spoilers! Who said you get the first pick, huh?
I believe it's my turn.
I don't think it is. Unless I've got the wrong draft that we did last.
What was the last thing we did?
I believe the last draft that we did was the Players That Fooled Us draft on April Fools, of which you had the first pick and took Trent Richardson, I think.
Fatty.
I pulled up this show recently to try to make sure.
That was before the mock draft? But what about the mock draft?
Mock draft
have the first.
Does the mock draft count?
I was counting it.
The mock
Chat, should the mock draft count?
Yeah, let's leave it up to the public because I don't know, because we're normally competing against each other who's creating the best team. We weren't doing that in the NFL mock draft, so it's a
We've
gray
got one
area.
vote for Pat here in the chat.
Oh yeah, great. Pat says should count. Num says.
Oh, we're even. We're even now. 2-2.
Yes. No.
I live in Chicago. No. That doesn't help. No.
I think that helps.
All drafts count. We're still 3-3.
All drafts count. No.
We're gonna get to
10
votes.
I don't want him to get Genty because I'm a Bears fan. I don't know what that's
So 4
supposed
votes
to
to 3. We need 3 more votes here. Yes. 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 6-4.
All right, fine. Take it. I don't care.
Yay!
I have a strategy for this anyway. If I had the second pick,
had you gotten him, I would have also had a strategy as well. So I'm curious that you have yours. We don't need to talk about Ashton Genty. He is.
Is the public familiar with Ashton Genty?
He's going to be the biggest He's going to be the biggest big load running back of these starters here, and I am already obsessed with him. And he picked his number, and I ordered his jersey.
Ashton Genty is sticking with number 2 as he heads to Las Vegas. Yeah, that is going to be a fucking hot jersey. That's going to be really sick. I'm debating getting I want a Will Campbell jersey, Pat. I'm not going to lie. I fucking love this guy. He said he wants to die. He said he wants to die for Drake May. So
that's crazy work, man.
I've never been more invested in an O lineman in my life than I am in Will Tiny Arms Campbell. I love my little T-Rex. All right. So
are you picking him right now? Like, what are we doing?
Pat, are we doing snake draft here, or are we just going back and forth?
I guess with all the picks we have, I guess we could snake it.
I feel like we should snake it, especially just because you got such an overwhelmingly best player in this.
I can live with that, especially since we have so many picks. Usually we just pick 4 or 5, so that's easy to bounce. What are we picking? We're picking 7 guys here, so yeah, I'm cool.
Yeah, so we're filling out
2 here.
Yeah, we're filling out QB, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a tight end, and a flex. All right. My first pick in the favorite rookies draft, Pat, I am going to not overthink it. And maybe some people will think this is overthinking it. I'm going with Travis Hunter with my first pick. I am unconcerned, relatively speaking, about the concept of him playing too much defense, not playing enough offense. The landing spot could simply not be better for Travis Hunter. You've already got him going to a team that says they plan to deploy him primarily on the offensive side of the ball. He's going to a team coached by a guy who already created one of the most productive receiver duos in the league with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Not that he created them, but he deployed them about as well as you possibly could and got insane numbers out of those 2 guys with the offense that he ran. I believe he can do the same with the combination of Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. And there have been some I don't know what the right word is. Realistic, valid, whatever you want to say. There's been a lot of people, Pat, comparing Travis Hunter, at least the way he moves, to Justin Jefferson. Now, I'm not expecting him to be Justin Jefferson, but, I mean, the guy got picked with the 2nd overall pick in the NFL draft. He is touted as having this absolutely elite, borderline inhuman hand-eye coordination with some of the catches he's able to make. I am just betting on the talent. I don't care if he only plays 70% of the snaps. I think that is plenty to be able to be, honestly, a wide receiver 1 in fantasy if things break right. At the very least, a wide receiver 2. So I am going to go with the guy who I think is probably the best overall talent among the rookies, at least the offensive rookies. Just obviously, Genty's a running back who's going to get 30 touches a game, so he's absolutely should be the first pick. But I like Travis Hunter as my wide receiver 1 here. I think he's going to be one of the more polarizing players in fantasy, both for redraft and dynasty, and I'm very excited to see how it plays out. But I just felt like not drafting him was the equivalent of, like, passing on Shohei Ohtani in fantasy baseball because you just didn't know if he could do both. And it's like, oh, cool, he's low-key just the Cy Young and the MVP all in one, and it's Travis Hunter could be the same, even though we don't get credit for defensive stats. My strategy, Pat, to counteract you taking on Ashton Genty, who's just so fucking good, is to take the only actual startable fantasy receivers out of this group.
The receivers.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going a different. Oh, okay.
Oh no, I could take Cam Ward. I could take Cam Ward.
Yeah, that would have been. I would have taken him in this first loop had just the sense that, like, there are 2 guys that are projected to be starters, but one of them is 37 years old and in New Orleans. But
right,
get a job.
No, I'm gonna cuck you as far as the receivers go because I think that is where the hit will be felt a little bit more than me having to inevitably settle for Tyler Shuck. So I will take Titty Boy Tet McMillan. Got drafted as the presumable wide receiver 1 in Carolina. Now I am not expecting him to be this world-beating, receiver with Bryce Young. Bryce Young did not have a great time last year connecting with receivers who are more contested catch type of guys. I mean, Xavier Legette was okay at points, but he honestly put up better numbers with receivers like Adam Thielen and Jalen Coker even last year. So I don't think McMillan's going to be, I wouldn't say he's going to be a wide receiver 1 for fantasy, back in wide receiver 2 if he's lucky. But as far as his standing in a rookie draft like this, where the pool is strictly rookies, I do think he is the next best pick here just because I don't trust any other receiver that was drafted in this NFL draft to contribute in year 1.
Yeah, it is scarce, and you are in a good spot here because, like, even if I take, depending on who I take, you're still going to get some good options here.
That's the thing. There are such great running backs available that I didn't feel the need to take one there. I figured, let me get the positional advantage here.
So I've got to cuck you back now and go, instead of 0 RB, go every RB. So my RB2 here is Omarion Hampton.
Yep.
We talked about it at length last week with Najee Harris being there. This guy is an absolute freight train. They took him in the first round. in spite of having Najee Harris. They could have just said, hey, we're fine at running back and moved on. But they liked this kid to the point where they passed on other needs to get him. They love to run the ball, Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman. It's just, it might not be the best situation. Like if we were looking at Hampton in Cleveland or Denver, we're looking at, a great option. But I still think he's viable enough to go here.
No, I definitely agree. Just to chime in on Hampton, like, again, we were at a point when they signed Najee Harris that we were like, oh, cool, this is a guy that could get a ton of volume, and even though we don't love the talent, he could be really good. The narrative completely shifts when a team takes a running back with first-round draft capital, because it now shifts to they signed Najee Harris to a $4 million deal. Omarion Hampton is making more money than Najee Harris is this upcoming year as a rookie. So it is, you now have to view Najee as at best a 1B to Hampton, if not the straight up backup to Omarion Hampton. So I think that is the right call from you there.
And let's take my flex right here, just to keep this train going. This is really tough because there are two other guys that are pretty much not undisputed starters, but should be starters. And then the question just becomes who's going to be in the better situation here. And I do think it is R.J. Harvey in Denver over Quinshon Judkins. So I'm going to go Harvey here just from the sense that both of these guys should get really good volume. It's just that these touches in Denver are going to be far more meaningful than whatever the fuck is happening in Cleveland. So I like them both. I actually took Judkins over Harvey in my dynasty draft. I had the opportunity to take, and I did go Judkins, but for this year's purposes only, with just how fucking bad the Browns are going to be with that disaster at quarterback, I'm going to go with Harvey here.
All right, yeah, I mean, R.J. Harvey, again, has been just the darling of post-draft fantasy discourse, because taken with draft capital higher than we expected, going to a team with a seemingly wide-open depth chart, going to a team with an ascending just team in general, and one of the best offensive lines in the entire league. Now all that has to shake out is exactly how the touch distribution is going to go in that backfield. But considering Jaleel McLaughlin and Audric Estime did not a whole lot last year, there is reason to expect that as long as Harvey shows he's up to it, can handle about as much work as they're going to give him. So I like that pick for a redraft situation. Pat, I didn't expect you to leave me the better quarterback of the groupage here, because I'm definitely going to take Cam Ward here now with my next pick. I got to kind of get that advantage now, that, especially now that your running backs are all full, you don't need to take anymore. I'm going to take Cam Ward. You mentioned it before. It's him and Tyler Shuck as the projected Week 1 rookie starters right now. We don't think any other rookie is going to get the call Week 1 as of right now. That could change. Will Howard could very well be the starter for the Steelers if they don't sign Aaron Rodgers. It's just him. It's just him versus Mason Rudolph. And if he does get named the starter, Pat, I think I would prefer Will Howard to Tyler Shuck. But as of right now, though, it was really just Ward and Shuck. And Cam Ward is the guy, certainly based on the multitude of
literal
factors.
First overall.
I don't think I have to defend this one too much as to why Cam Ward is the better fantasy option to Tyler Shuck and why he might be the only fantasy relevant rookie quarterback, if there even is one this year.
I was going to say.
There's a chance none of them are consistent fantasy starters, but Cam Ward has the best chance to do it. Big arm, mobile guy, hilariously fun to watch with how nonchalant he plays the game in the pocket. We'll see if that flies in the NFL with much more athletic people pursuing him. But he did play, high-level college football. So I'm going to go with Cam Ward. We'll see exactly what he's able to do in that Tennessee offense. That is not the best, but it's still not as desolate of a situation as New Orleans is with Tyler Shuck and Cam Ward. It's just the better player. So I'm definitely going to go Cam Ward here with the best chance to be a productive rookie quarterback for fantasy football. Now, with my next pick, I am going to go with Travion Henderson, the best running back that Pat left on the board.
Biased. Oh, you're going Henderson over Judkins.
Yes, I will go Henderson over Judkins.
Wow. Okay.
It is a, well, here's the thing. I'm just going to get Judkins.
Biased.
But it doesn't matter.
I'll take
Travion Henderson to give him the better draft capital because he's my Patriot little Boo Bear. And now I know his number and I like his number. So I think he's going to be even better. But no, Travion Henderson is a guy that I think is going to have a pretty big role right away, especially because of how good he is at pass protecting and how much that is needed on the Patriots offense. I think the fact that he just seems like a guy that with Mike Vrabel at the helm, that Mike Vrabel's going to love, man. Like, I don't see this being a case where he's going to have to really start as like the blatant backup to Ramondre. I see this being at worst a committee to open the year, and then I see Travion Henderson just stealing more and more work from Ramondre, possibly relegating him to a pure backup role as time goes on. Love the talent, love the player, and the Patriots. Again, I'm trying not to be too excited and too biased, but I do really love the direction that the Patriots are going, especially with this offense now, the moves that they made in this draft, getting Will Campbell to bolster the line, and just, again, getting competent coaching to kind of lead the way. So I will go with Travion Henderson. He is my RB1, which that sounds gross in general, but I am on board.
Yeah, you had to be biased and take your boy before your boo bear, which is fucking crazy work.
If I was smart, Pat, I would actually take that pick back and take a tight end because you can't take any more running backs. But
yeah,
whatever.
But you're dumb idiot bozo. Question now is which tight end should go?
That's the thing.
Here?
I almost don't have a preference. I think these guys are pretty close in terms of
that's what I mean.
What they're going to do this year.
I already talked. I love Mason Taylor. I also took him in my dynasty. I love him this year. Do I love him more than these 2 first-round picks? No, I don't. You're looking at Colston Loveland, who is in a better offense seemingly, but very crowded, where they literally have another tight end. Or you've got Tyler Warren in what could be the 2 really scary quarterbacks where they haven't utilized the tight end really that much in recent years. So I am going to go Colston Loveland here. I think it is very, very close. I think just the fact that they took him 10th overall when they did not need to do that. Again, they had other positional needs. You have Cole Kmet was making a decent chunk of change for a tight end with all the wide receivers they have. You know, they had to have something envisioned for him with Ben Johnson, and we saw him and Sam Laporta make magic a couple of years ago.
Absolutely. I love that pick. I think that probably would have been the way I went had I had my first dibs at a tight end, which I did, but I'm a fucking dumbass, so I support that 100%.
Yeah, like I said, very, very close. And I'm gonna go wide receiver now. My wide receiver one, just how your RB1 is potentially Dookie. My wide receiver one is the same thing. We're looking at some similar guys in similar situations. A couple guys that got drafted into good offenses but are crowded.
Jack Bash, take Jack Bash.
I took him in Dynasty. I literally traded back into my Dynasty draft to take Jack Bash.
Oh, look at you.
My fucking guy. So this is
Jack
tough.
Bash.
I'm not taking Jack Bash. He's not even one of the 2 guys I'm considering right now.
Jack Bash.
I sort of. Am I in crystal meth here, or did Egbuka go in the 2nd round? Right?
No, he went in the first.
He did go in the 1st round. That's right. Oh, 19. I don't know who I'm thinking of. It's between him and Matthew Golden, of course. Where and again, both good offenses. I am going to go Egbuka here,
really?
Just because I prefer the talent, and I think there is opportunity in that offense beyond Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And I mean, again, the fact that they take him probably means he's going to surpass Jalen McMillan to start the year. K-Dot is K-Dot, and he's a solid tight end, but the talent Egbuka has, I think, is just going to force his way into the offense. Could it be a situation like Jack? Am I going to be actively trying to take him in redraft leagues? No, probably not. This feels like a Jackson Smith and Jigba kind of deal, where it's just a really good player who just needs some time to be incorporated before he makes that leap. But that said, I think in two crowded situations here, I'll go with the talent pick over anything else here.
Interesting. I would not have taken Emeka Egbuka. He is not a guy that I am expecting hardly anything from in his rookie year. And I could absolutely be wrong. I think you're totally right that he is probably going to usurp Jalen McMillan right away, if for no other reason than, draft capital. And McMillan got better as the year went on, but it was kind of by necessity almost, just because Godwin was hurt. I don't know that he would have really asserted himself had either of those guys, or had Evans and Godwin stayed, fully healthy all year. But I think Egbuka does have maybe more of a chance than McMillan does to carve out a small role, but it's going to be a small role if those guys stay healthy. So I think look, you're picking from a desolate group of receivers there. So I think there wasn't a whole lot you could do. That's kind of, I did that to you on purpose.
In the way I see it is, you're probably just going to take two running backs as well. So I'll probably get whoever else I want at wide receiver anyway.
That is absolutely fair. So, all right, I will take Quinshon Judkins off the board here.
Course. Sure.
I will get the double Ohio State running back. Projected starter for the Cleveland Browns. Was not expected to get drafted ahead of Henderson, I don't think, which is funny because, and I don't think we mentioned this yet, but like, I'm hoping that this is basically a reverse of what happened 8 years ago with the Patriots drafting Sony Michel and then the Browns drafting Nick Chubb. Patriots drafted Michel first, then the Browns took Chubb, two guys from the same backfield, Patriots and Browns. Yeah, I think we fucking know how that one worked. Look, Sony Michel helped us win a Super Bowl, so I don't really care.
Guy's named after a TV.
I do care because I love Nick Chubb, and if he was a Patriot, he probably would have been my favorite player of all time. But it is just funny that this happened twice, right? The Patriots and Browns both select a running back early from the same backfield, and the one goes ahead of the other when we didn't necessarily expect that to happen. So hopefully the Patriots get the better end of it this year. I think they might. But Quinshon Judkins, either way, got drafted as the first Ohio State running back off the board and is going to be the starter for the Browns. This offense looks like it's going to be dookie, but the opportunity is going to be there, and that makes him easily the best running back left as far as immediate contributors for this upcoming season. Now, I don't necessarily need to draft a tight end because you've already drafted yours. I am going to go somewhere for my flex spot, and I am uncertain.
I think I would have my pick if I was in your spot.
I'm trying to see. I'm between two guys at different positions. I am between one running back and one receiver as I look at it right now.
Jack Bash.
It's not Jack Besh. I'm going to look up a depth chart really quick here just to possibly make my decision a little easy. Man, this is a toss-up. I have a... Yeah, no, I don't have any other spots. Okay. Gun to my head, who would I rather have out of these guys? Give me Trey Harris. I will take Trey Harris in my flex spot.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Trey Harris went to a wide-open depth chart. Again, we talked about how the Chargers needed another receiver. We thought they could maybe take one in the first round. They did not do so. Their receiving depth chart is currently Ladd McConkey, Stonehands Johnston, dead Mike Williams, and then it's Trey Harris. I think Trey Harris is going to be involved early and often. Again, it's all about the learning curve, right? Like, you can look at the opportunity all you want, you can look at the talent all you want, and realize that he probably has both, but now you have to hope that he adjusts quickly to the NFL for him to be able to be fantasy relevant in his rookie season. But second round draft capital, pick 55 overall to the Chargers. I like Trey Harris as a possible immediate contributor at the position. I was between him and Caleb Johnson. It was one of the two.
That's who I would. If I was in your position, that's who I would have went with.
Yeah, and again, it was game time decision. Like, if you caught me on a different day, I might go Caleb Johnson. But I decided to fade Caleb Johnson mostly for the Arthur Smith factor. So I'm just gonna go with Trey Harris here. I think there is, we talk all the time about, as it pertains to tight ends, the top two target on their team. There is a pretty strong chance that Trey Harris is the second highest target getter on this team in his rookie year. So I'm going to go with him in the old flex spot.
Yeah, he was somebody that was like kind of on my fringe radar here. I think what plays in his favor too is that a different playing style than Ladd McConkey. Like, it's not going to be a case where it's like Jack Besh, for example. You look at him and you look at Jacoby Myers and you're kind of just like, okay, like, they'll figure it out. But it's a completely different deal here. Like, they're going to be able to be on the field altogether. Oh, no Tootin. Yeah, Lucian is upset that we didn't take Tootin.
I love my boy Tootin. I will be drafting him as a very, very late round dart throw unless I pump up his draft stock among our fellow league mate listeners enough that I don't get a chance at him.
But they're a bunch of cucks. Yeah,
they are. I'm still mad at Brett about Devon Achane. I'll never not be mad at him about that. But
I'm still laughing at Tynan taking Melvin Gordon before.
God, don't remind me of that. Fuck. God, that makes me. Oh God, that worked out fine for me because I ended up drafting Antonio Brown, who that was one of his best years anyway. But yeah, that was for context. I was going to draft Melvin Gordon with, I think, like the fifth overall pick,
maybe, yeah.
Fifth overall pick in the draft, and he was ranked probably, like 12th or 13th, so it was going to be a bit of a reach as far as first rounds are concerned, but I was like, fuck it, I like him, this is my guy, all that, and then I got sniped on him by somebody who reached on him even harder than me because he heard I wanted him, so yeah, fuck that guy. But yeah, no, as it pertains to Tootin, my boy, Toot, hold on, wait, I don't have this.
Let's go.
I don't have this fucking sound effect for nothing. Let me unloop it. I do think he has a chance to contribute his rookie season, but he has a lot more in his way on the depth chart than any of the guys I've selected so far. So if I am forced to make a selection of guys who are going to contribute from week 1, it's all these guys. Tootin might be a guy who, takes until the second half of the season to really emerge, much like Bucky Irving did this past season. So that is my logic there. All right, Pat, who are you taking here, and why is it Tyler Shuck?
Well, I'm going to take him last. He doesn't deserve to be taken here. The guy I was talking about when I was talking about Ibuka, first of all, shout out Jaden Higgins. He's not my pick, but he's the next guy in line I probably would have gone with. I'll go Matthew Golden. Again, you look at that Packers, a very crowded wide receiver room, but we've kind of talked about it since they drafted him. Like, a lot of them have their issues. Like, Jaden Reed has not proven to be a guy who's going to be out there on every snap. He is a great, fun gadget guy, and he still has his own value. Christian Watson's body is just made of glass, unfortunately. Romeo Doubs just sleeps in the same bed as Jordan Love. That's the only reason why he's probably still even there. They take baths together too. Was that what I said last week? Is bathmate? I think that's I think that's what I call them. Like, Romeo Doubs is still there, and Dontavian Wicks, God forbid. So, like, you look at all those guys and you think, well, that's a lot in terms of quantity, but the quality isn't necessarily there. And Matthew Golden can easily slot into that. And again, this is a good Packers offense with Matt LaFleur. And, Tucker Kraft will get his, and they're going to run the ball a lot, but they're still going to throw the ball. And if Jaden Reed is their number one guy, who really can't statistically be a number one guy on a week-in, week-out basis, Matthew Golden at least has a shot to be a consistent contributor. It may not be huge contributions, but again, looking at this point over a guy like Higgins, that's why I like him.
And you have to consider this, too. If Romeo Doubs is the guy taking baths with Jordan Love, maybe Matthew Golden could be the one taking showers with Jordan. I tried to keep that one together. I couldn't fully. But we could be looking at a golden shower situation, Pat. I mean, a love golden shower situation.
That is going to be a huge fantasy team name that is not on my radar.
Absolutely, the Golden Showers. I would love to name my team the Golden Shower. So I want
just because.
I just wanted to point that out. I mean, one's taking a bath, one's taking a shower. It's a little golden shower situation. Nothing wrong with the golden shower once in a while. All right, Pat, take Tyler Shuck now.
Tyler Shuck next. There's the reason why I'm taking him and not one of these darts is should there only have been one wide receiver, Jesus Christ, one rookie quarterback in Cleveland, whether it was just Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders, I would feel good about one of them starting at one point this year because of the way that team is constructed. But with two of them, the question becomes, which one is it? Which obviously Gabriel has the draft capital, but I think a lot of people, even with these issues, that Shedeur Sanders is simply a better quarterback than Dylan Gabriel, and we'll see if he can show that in camp to the satisfaction of the, of the coaching staff. And Jackson Dart is behind two very established quarterbacks, granted mid at this point in their careers, but still.
Guys he could take over, but not guys we expect him to beat out right away. You wouldn't.
That's what I mean. Like, there is a chance we see Jackson Dart by the end of the year, but at the end of the day, Tyler Shuck is probably going to start a majority of, if not all of these games for the Saints this year. Could be big Desmond Ridder vibes. It's scaring the shit out of me, but he is literally the only, assuming Derek Carr is out, which it seems to be the case, he's going to be the only other starting quarterback here, and it's disgusting, and he needs to get a job.
I mean, he's probably going to be asked, but yeah, he's got to become an insurance adjuster sooner rather than later. But hey, football will work for now. All right, one last pick here. It is me picking my tight end.
Take Tyler Warren.
This is going to come as a shock to the general audience, but yes, it's going to be Tyler Warren. I do think, like you said, Pat, Mason Taylor has a chance to be good his rookie year as well. And I fucking hate the quarterback situation that Tyler Warren is stepping into, but he's stepping into a place where he could be, I won't say, I don't know, man. I don't know if I think he has a chance to be the top target earner on that team with a guy like Michael Pittman and Josh Downs there. I actually don't know where he fits into the pecking order. Both guys who get banged up, though. Yeah, very true. I don't know where he fits into the pecking order right now. I do know that he is a really talented player who can line up all over the field. So I think as it pertains to, rookie tight ends you expect to produce in year one, I'll take Tyler Warren, but I would not be surprised if Mason Taylor outproduced him in year one. So this is more of a strict bet on draft capital and talent, and just kind of hoping that dumpster fire that is the Indianapolis Colts sorts itself out one way or another. But there are our teams. I'll run through them real quick here. Pat has Tyler Shuck, Ashton Jeanty. Starting it with Tyler Shuck, I think almost disqualifies you just from a mental, like, when people hear the team, they're going to be like, oh, God, one of them has Shuck. Tyler Shuck, Ashton Jeanty, Omarion Hampton, Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden, Colston Loveland, and R.J. Harvey. I have Cam Ward, Travion Henderson, Quinshawn Judkins, Travis Hunter, Ted McMillan, Tyler Warren, and Trey Harris. Fuck, I have a lot of T's on my team. Jesus Christ. I should have had
TTs.
If I had Tyler Shuck, Pat, there would only be one player on my team whose name doesn't start with T, and it would be
You want to trade?
Judkins. Yes, and I'm gonna need. Hold on. Are there any other running backs whose names start with T? I mean, could I change his name?
Tootin.
I was gonna say I gotta go backwards. I gotta go Tootin, Bayshaw. So
he's gonna go by one name like Madonna, just Tootin.
I mean, if anybody deserves that, it's him. But folks, let us know in the comments who created a better all-rookie fantasy team. I think this was a fun little segment here. And, I don't know, Pat. I mean, I think honestly, all-rookie fantasy teams could be sometimes they work out. Like last year, I was afraid to draft so many rookies, and then all the guys I fucking liked and talked myself out of ended up being awesome. Jaden Daniels, Brock Bowers. Like, I was a mental midget last year with that shit. It made me mad. Yeah, Brock Bowers, he's fucking great. But that'll do it for this episode of Brand Coverage, folks. Again, a little early. We might be hovering more around an hour, just over an hour with some of these shows as we hit the true dead period of the offseason. But again, if you want our shows to be longer, leave us some fun segments that you want us to do, and if we like them, we'll do them. We're your little podcast football whores right now. We will do whatever you tell us to do, especially if you give us money. I mean, fuck, we'll do just about anything. I'll
$20 is $20, man.
I mean, look, golden shower is on the table. Folks, for this week, for Pat Gustafson, I'm Brandon Carney, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
All right. And for those of you still here, of course, we will answer the donation questions. First question from Lucian, $5, said, favorite rookie whose last name can also be used to describe the act of farting. William with 5 said, what are your thoughts on the Bills running back situation? Comfortable with Cook, or maybe try and sign Chubb or Dobbins? I don't see them bringing in anybody. I think they're very comfortable with Cook as their starter. He was really good last year, even though the rumors about, him selling his house and they're not going to give him the contract he wants, whatever. I think that is a worry for next year. The depth behind him isn't bad. Like, Ray Davis showed something in spurts last year, and Ty Johnson is unironically a really good third down and receiving back. Yeah. So I don't see a need for them to bring in any kind of big name here.
No, like I said, I think Ray Davis is a fine backup, and James Cook proved the doubters wrong last year, quite frankly.
100%.
Even with Allen being a fucking vulture.
Dude, seriously, imagine if he didn't have Josh Allen doing what he was doing. Bucko with 5 said, with the news of Justin Tucker being cut, why does it seem like half the league are complete pricks with backwards morals? It's not half. It's all of them. Some of them just don't find themselves in these situations with players, so they don't get tested on what they would do. No, I'm not going to give the Chiefs any credit. I was going to say the Chiefs cut Kareem Hunt when that stuff first came about, but they still have Rashee Rice, who just, crashed into people and injured them, and has they have no issue keeping him around. So yeah, man, money rules all, and teams are just corrupt and don't really care in general. Just kind of how it goes. It's varying degrees across the teams, I would say. Some are a lot more careless than others, but at the end of the day, all of them are pretty much viewing it as, if you can help my football team, I will keep you around and keep things under wraps unless you murder someone.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not gonna name any big player, but like if some big player did something like this, like I mean, fucking Deshaun Watson got to stick around in the league for God's sakes because of it.
Just on the hope that he was still good.
Yeah, if a bigger player did something like this, unless it was very, very bad to the point where they were going to go to prison, it would get swept under the rug to the point where they would not get cut. It would be overlooked. They might get a game or two suspension, slap on the wrist. But it's just money rules, and a lot of these guys, too, once they get money in their pockets, sometimes they don't know how to act. Look at our boy Henry Ruggs here. Guy gave him all the money in the world, and, and when I go back to Vegas, I got to go to Topgolf. I'm going to see if there's a different employee that could tell me which bay he was in. The last guy didn't know what I was talking about, so...
Henry Ruggs is set to get out of jail next year, Pat. He might be getting some workouts pretty soon and heading back into the league. You know, he's. I think he's really earned a second chance, Pat.
By what? The NHRA, a drag racer?
Look, Pat, he's a changed man. You know, he's murdered a woman and spent 3 years in cozy jail. He's going to be a very different man.
Cozy jail. I feel like that's kind of like my life.
All right. Nate with 5 said DC has 3 nearby airports. Reagan had the crash recently, but you still have Dulles and BWI and Amtrak if you're in the Northeast Corridor as options. All right, yeah, I will use one of those to get to the draft in 2 years because I do not trust the airport that fucking smashed the helicopter.
If you're going from if you're like I live in Connecticut, it's drivable. It's not the shortest drive in the world, but it's drivable.
That's probably
if I were to go to DC right now, I would drive. That would be my preferred method of transportation.
Brand coverage live from the 2027 NFL draft. Schedule it right now.
Then we storm the Capitol.
Lucian with 5 said favorite rookie whose last name rhymes with the phrase "shooin'." Bayshall Tootin', baby. RB1 overall next season. Fucking mark it down. Alex at 199 said Pitts was drafted 1 pick before Jamar. Jeez.
Count your lucky stars, Alex.
A painful reminder. Yeah, I know. Seriously, Alex is a Bengals fan. Painful reminder. The players. So look, I don't think people really viewed it like this up until now because like Kyle Pitts had such a good rookie year that it wasn't like, oh, here are the players the Falcons missed out on by drafting Kyle Pitts. It wasn't viewed as a here are the guys drafted after Jamarcus Russell situation. But with Pitts' trajectory going the way it is. And now looking at the players who were drafted directly after Kyle Pitts, Pat, this is in order with no skips. Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Penei Sewell, J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain, Devonta Smith.
Loaded.
And then
fucking loaded.
And then you have a small break because it's Justin Fields, you know, quarterback, whatever. Quarterbacks get drafted where they get drafted. After that, though, Micah Parsons, Rashawn Slater, and then it drops off a little bit. But yeah, it's
I believe Christian Darrisaw is also in that draft too, is he not?
He is at number 23.
Woman spotted.
Oh, I didn't even know. This is only going to get more painful for the Falcons. For the Falcons as time goes on. So fucking yikes. All right, next question. Bucko with 10 said, what do you think of the cell phone pranks at the draft, and what solution would you come up with as it happened to Cooper DeJean in 2024, so it's not an isolated incident? Yes, Pat, thoughts?
I need to cut in first. It has to do with a woman. As you all know, who follow me on X/Twitter at PJ Gustafson, I have Insane Riz on Hinge.
You do.
And I was chatting up this girl for like a week. We were supposed to meet, and I plugged my band's EP, and she fucking ghosted me. Like, immediately. Like, was it that bad? Was it that bad?
It
wasn't the last message she sent. That wasn't the last message of the conversation. But it's been few and far between since. I think she really didn't like it. So sorry. The sign of a woman got me thinking about that, and the pod needed to know.
I apologize for triggering your trauma. But this question, to answer, what would I do to fix the prank call situation at the draft?
Prank call everyone. Make it even.
Prank call everyone. No. I don't know. It can't be that hard to keep this shit under wraps. Maybe whatever you're doing to distribute these phone numbers, maybe just give it to less people. Like, give it to the people that fucking absolutely need it, or have like 1 or 2 designated phone call people. Because it seems like it's just getting sent to why Jeff Ulbrich doesn't need that phone number. He doesn't. He's a defensive coordinator.
Exactly. Like, if it was a defensive player, I could see it a little more. The fact that Ulbrich has all the numbers like that. Yeah, that didn't need to happen in the first place. That's a good point.
Yeah, so I would say either that, or the more fun solution is to not call them before the pick at all and just make them see it on TV first and then call them to be like, hey, welcome to the team, blah, 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 whatever. I think that would be more fun personally, but I guess that doesn't really work if every player's not watching the draft, which as you get, later and later into it, they're probably not, and they're not even showing all the picks on screen. But I don't know. It is a sucky situation for sure. Omega with 499 said Tucker must go to Cleveland to complete his villain arc. But on a serious note, will Mark Andrews be next? Isaiah Likely is talented and 5 years younger. So in terms of players being cut, yeah, I think they'll move on from Mark Andrews pretty soon. I don't know if it'll be this year, but I could see it being this year. Hold on, let me check Mark Andrews' contract. situation. I don't know what the dead money looks like if they were to move on from him. Signed a 4-year, $56 million contract. Dead cap. Where's the deady cap? Dead cap of $9 million, $10 million almost. I don't see a need for them to cut him. I guess, the cap hit is $16 million, so it would save $7 million if they got rid of him. But what are you saving cap space for at this point? No, I don't really see a need to get rid of him. I think this is probably more of a, next year it's fully Isaiah Likely's job. And honestly, it might be this year Isaiah Likely overtakes him and Andrews takes more of a back seat. But I don't really see a need to get him off the roster.
Do we need to mention the fact that Andrews had a career high 11 touchdowns last year as well? And that was with some games where he was completely non-existent.
But Pat, he had that drop too.
He did have that drop, unfortunately.
Which undoes everything else he did last year, obviously.
And while, touchdowns are great, and he's still very involved in that offense, not quite, obviously, with Zay Flowers continuing to emerge. There's really no sign of him. He has slowed down less than Travis Kelce by a ton. I see even from a production standpoint, even with Isaiah Likely, there's... unless we see that kind of more significant decline from Andrews this year, I don't really see a reason to move on from a football, from a money, from an Isaiah Likely perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would expect them both to be there this year, but maybe just a slower changing of the guard situation, possibly. Lucian with 5 said, Chubb to Chicago rumors were given the grain of salt that Cleveland is still trying to get him back. See, I have not seen that. I haven't seen him connected to Cleveland at all, other than just the expectation that they won't be bringing him back. But, they certainly still have the room on the depth chart to do so. It's Judkins, and then it's Ford, and then it's fucking Pierre Strong, I think. Is that... I think that's actually their RB3. No, sorry, they drafted Dylan Sampson, too. But after that, it's Pierre Strong. So, there's definitely room for him to be the... honestly, back up to Quinshon Judkins, at the very least, the RB3 behind him and Ford, while Sampson is more of a, occasional sort of player as a 4th-round pick. But yeah, I haven't seen much of that. But if that's true, good for him. I think it would be nice for them to kind of show Chubb some love after all that he's done for them, especially if they have the room to do it. Bucko with 5 said, in your opinion, have the Bills picked the right wide receiver out of free agency for Josh Allen and Elijah Moore?
Listen here, Bucko.
Elijah Moore is pretty irrelevant. They got Josh Palmer earlier in the offseason, which is the much more relevant signing. And, Pat, I'm actually starting to come around now that this question was asked. I'm coming around to the idea of Josh Palmer as a really high upside sort of mid-round pick, because I think we're all under this impression that, Josh Palmer comes from a place where he was part of a committee receiving group, and now he's going to a new team that is a committee receiving group. I look at it as, is this the lottery ticket or the worthy lottery ticket of a guy going to an offense that is still desperately asking a wide receiver to step up and be the guy? I don't think the Bills are predestined to be a committee receiving group forever. Now, could they be that this upcoming year? Absolutely, again, because we saw it last year. But what is the variable, right? What is the variable that could change anything from last year? Josh Palmer is the only thing that's changed, other than maybe a second-year leap for Keon Coleman. I think I just want to put an extra layer of thought into the Josh Palmer situation and not just assume, that it's going to be the same as it was last year, because I also saw he had one of the best separation scores of any receiver in the league last year. And there's always a chance that a quarterback just connects with a wide receiver in a certain way. So I kind of like Josh Palmer as a dart throw kind of guy, especially with them signing him out of free agency. And we'll see. But yeah, as far as it relates to Elijah Moore, don't care. Lucian with 2 said, St. Louis Battlehawks cut Mims earlier today. They cut Denzel Mims, Pat. Are you devastated?
Who can't say it?
Yeah, I was waiting for this one. GP 199. The first pick should be George Pickens. GP better than Moss, assuming he means Randy Moss. Okay. Omega with 199 said Likely shows up in the playoffs and Andrews doesn't. And that one big drop, I don't know, should be projected across Andrews' entirety of his playoff contributions, but I do understand that it left a bad taste in people's mouths for sure. And lastly, we have Cole with 10 said, have you done Patriots game-by-game predictions, and do you think Drake May's turnover problem will persist? I'm not particularly worried about Drake May's turnover problem because of just the horrific supporting cast he had last year. This is what I've said about Drake May. This year is going to be the year that the microscope is more on Drake May, because last year, I think everybody, myself included, gave him a pass for basically any mistake he made because he had to force the issue just to do anything last year. And the offense was so disorganized, it was so talentless that you kind of just watched him and you were like, I find it hard to hold anything against this guy given the situation he's in. If there is a major turnover problem this year with the offense seemingly taking a slight step forward at the very least, then yeah, it'll be something we have to start worrying about. But as of now, I'm just not overly concerned. So we'll wait another year to have that conversation, or at least wait until the season gets going. But I'm excited. I'm excited for the Patriots this season. All right, a couple questions in the regular chat. If anybody's got any questions, you do not have to donate. Just fire away, and we will answer a couple of them before we hop off the stream. Let's see here.
I'm eepy.
Oh, yeah, you're a big eepy bear over there. Cole said, are you a fan of all Boston sports teams or just the Pats?
No, he's a fucking psycho.
It is just the Patriots. I am a melting pot fan, and I will not be chastised for it, Pat. I will not.
Yes, you will.
I will not be chastised for my childhood choices, all right? Children
I
are
will,
allowed to
because
choose whatever teams they so wish, and I chose my teams based on nothing but colors and vibes and my grandpa. So you leave me alone.
Then your grandpa's sus on that one, then, pal.
I will say, so my grandpa's the reason I'm a Patriots and Yankees combo fan, but when we watched the Patriots-Giants Super Bowl, the first one together, that was like one of the first football games I ever really watched, like in front of the TV. And after the Giants won, my grandpa lets out, he was like, I've always kind of liked the Giants. I'm not too upset. I'm like, what? So I looked at him in a completely new light after that. I was like, you motherfucker, you raised me this way with these teams, and now you're telling me you've been a closet Giants fan the whole time. What the fuck? So that was an interesting one.
I mean, I can't really talk like I'm the Yankees.
You have
Lakers guy, so.
You got fucking Yankees, Lakers, Raiders.
Pick two of the three basic popular teams, but I will never in my life even consider being anywhere close to a Dallas Cowboys fan.
That's true, yeah. I mean, you're a Duke fan, though. The JV Scrub said, I'm a suffering Saints fan. What do I do?
Alcohol?
Yeah, have you tried drinking heavily? No. I mean, just look forward. Do mock drafts, man. Just look forward to next year. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Look up Tyler Shuck highlights, maybe.
Look up Arch Manning highlights.
See if they exist, because there ain't a whole lot to be excited about as a Saints fan, other than if Rashid Shaheed's healthy and
he's a kid.
70-yard touchdowns.
Like how old of a kid?
Drink lots of Gatorade and I don't know. Do your homework is what I would say, because the Saints are not.
School. Don't wind up like me.
The Saints, yeah, Pat's a dropout. The Saints are not going to be giving you much joy for quite a while. Let's see. Jackson said, just tuning in, where do you both place Travis Hunter in fantasy football drafts? What players would you draft before him? Let me look at where he's landing in redraft right now, because I'm not sure what people actually think of him. Let's see. Wide receivers. Travis Hunter is wide receiver 31. He is behind Jordan Addison, Chris Olave, Chris Godwin, Jamison Williams, DK.
Yeah, I think I like him better than some of those guys.
I like him better than a lot of these guys.
I think I like him better than... The only name that you said that I was clearly yes was Chris Godwin. The rest of them, Addison, Jamison Williams, straight up no. At least right now, I would rather have Travis Hunter. Chris Olave, his head is made of concrete and goo at the same time.
I'm going to be too high on Travis Hunter. It's going to be an issue. I would say right now, I see. So wide receiver 21 is Zay Flowers. Like Zay Flowers better.
I do too.
Ahead of Zay Flowers directly, Rashee Rice, DJ Moore, Devontae Adams. Like all those guys better.
Absolutely.
So that's fair. Wide receiver 22 is Marvin Harrison Jr. Wide receiver 23 is Cortland Sutton. Wide receiver 24 is Devonta Smith. I've got Travis Hunter right around there as far as tiers are concerned.
I think I do like those three better, but again, it's at the point where I'm really thinking about it.
Right. So I would say wide receiver 24, 25, 26-ish range, which
High-end wide receiver 3. Seems very
Yeah,
fair for
yeah.
expectation for
pretty
him.
much. And in terms of overall fantasy rankings, that would put him as about a 5th-round pick, which I'm incredibly comfortable with for Travis Hunter. I think that leaves a lot of room for upside. So I would say right around that range. All right, we'll do one more question before we hop off here. Let's see. John says, do you think the Broncos passing on Hampton for possibly the best defense in the league was worth it? Will Harvey be as productive as Hampton would have been? I think there's a chance
Yes
that
and
it's
no.
worth it. I think there's a chance that it's worth it. The fact they spent such a high pick on Harvey tells me they liked him a lot and probably didn't have him all that far behind Hampton in general in terms of their overall rating of him. Otherwise, they would have waited till the 3rd round, not because, maybe partially because they would have thought they could get Harvey there, but because there were just other running backs in that tier. But they clearly like Harvey a lot. And for them to continue focusing on the defensive side of the ball, I think that is not a bad idea. I think they're just an incredibly well-rounded team. They already were, but they're an even more well-rounded team now. I think it was probably the right call to make. We'll see. I mean, if Omarion Hampton becomes a fucking all-pro in the next couple of years, then we'll be thinking differently, and he is an absolute tank. But I like the move personally.
And again, I've said it time and time again that, when you look at running backs, it's a lot more than just the talent. It's the line, it's the system. And the Broncos system seems like, unless you're Audric Estime or Jaleel McLaughlin, as long as you have more talent than guys like that, you're going to work there. So, build up that defense, still go get a solid running back. Like you said, that, is he going to produce more than Omarion Hampton would have? Probably not. But at the end of the day, that can be true, and it can also still be worth it.
Right, absolutely. All right, folks. That'll do it for this episode of Brand Coverage. Again, fully viewer question segment is over. My mouse is also about to die. But thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back again next week. For Pat Gustafson, I'm Brandon Carney, and we will see you guys next time.
Hopefully Mickey Mouse dies